You're listening to Moment of Truth, a weekly challenge from the front lines of faith, as heard on Courageous Christianity with Richard Mendelow, a radio show and podcast about real faith for the real world.
Today, our Moment of Truth comes from Romans chapter 12, verse 9, which says, "Abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good." In Normandy, France, as I stood before a small group of patriots on Omaha Beach, I addressed the topic of good versus evil, and I made 3 points. First, I said, you cannot appease evil. In 1936, Hitler was the Time magazine Man of the Year. For the next 3 years, despite numerous violations to the treaties which ended World War I, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Neville Chamberlain, tried to appease Hitler. As Hitler was testing German weapons in the Spanish Civil War from 1936 to 1938, weapons he wasn't supposed to have, displaying obvious intentions for war, Neville Chamberlain continued to try to appease him. As Hitler changed the laws to ostracize Jews from German society, the world turned a blind eye. And as Hitler bent the German church to his will, even many Christians were silent. The first thing to know about evil is that you cannot appease it. You cannot make friends with it. You can't hope that it will go away. Burying your head in the sand is not an option when the Department of Education of this nation thinks it's okay to read pornographic books to kindergartners. It's not an option when children are subjected to drag shows as men dress up as women and dance around, and then we wonder why gender dysphoria plagues struggling young people. It's not an option as evil uses cell phones, the internet, and drugs to steal the future of millions of children. It's not an option as fathers spend more time watching porn than they do playing catch with their children. It's not an option as radical feminism sells lies to wives and mothers, telling them it's wrong to respect their husbands and to raise their children. It's not an option as corporations place themselves between us and our elected officials, using lobbyists and political action committees to jam godless legislation and financial irresponsibility down the throats of their electorate. It's not an option as the news media and institutions of higher learning claim DEI is the answer, while fanning the ignorant flames of anti-Semitism, which less than 85 years ago claimed the lives of 6 million Jews. I guess inclusion doesn't include Jews. The second thing to know about evil is that it's always worse than you think it is. When those brave soldiers landed on the Normandy beaches, they knew nothing of the concentration camps just a few hundred miles away. They knew nothing of the gas chambers or the ovens where evil murdered 6 million of God's chosen people. Using that logic, what we see today is only a shadow of the true darkness which pervades our world. It must be much worse than we think it is. And as we bury our heads in the sand, it gets darker still. My last point about evil is that there are no bystanders. For each of the 160,000 soldiers who landed on the beaches in 1944, there were families at home, teachers and coaches who knew them, and men and women who made the weapons they used and the clothing they wore. And beyond those millions, there were all those in Europe, Asia, and North Africa who were counting on the soldiers to save them from the evil of Nazi Germany. I don't know how many people that is, but I know it's more than could ever be counted. My conclusion is that on June 6, 1944, 82 years ago, there were no bystanders in the clash that took place on the beaches of France as everything good met everything evil and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Everyone on this planet had a vested interest, and the same is true today in the clash between good and evil. And so in 2018, as I spoke on the beaches there, as things in this nation were not nearly as bad as they are today, I concluded that you can't appease or hide from evil. It's worse than you think it is, and there are no bystanders. I think the last 7 years have proven that to be true. On the show, we often talk about the spiritual battlefield and how we each have a unique place to serve. As we honor the men who fought on the beaches of Normandy and those who made the ultimate sacrifice in the clash between good and evil, I hope we will rededicate ourselves to the opportunity that we have as Christians in a nation under God, standing firm in faith with love and courage, living and speaking biblical truth with integrity, rejecting the stories we tell ourselves and the lies of the world around us as we strive to create alignment between our faith and how we actually live, and finally, pulling away from whomever and whatever would steal that opportunity from us. And that's courageous Christianity.
This has been your Moment of Truth. To hear the full conversation, visit courageouschristianity.today/listen or search Courageous Christianity with Richard Mendelow wherever you get your podcasts.